but if we shift from Russia to China, where you probably have a much smaller nuclear force, and where the doctrine probably was a retaliatory doctrine, the Chinese also raise some very serious concerns about missile defense. How do you answer the Chinese concerns?
Well, in the first place, the Chinese concerns are expressed much more modestly.
Yeah.
The Chinese have not actively opposed any of our deployments. They've simply expressed concern about them. And again, the Chinese have a very effective intelligence system. And I think they know which way our defenses are aimed. Again, is there a concern because we might have some effectiveness against their capability against what? Certainly not their intercontinental capabilities. They know nothing we're deploying over there has any effect, any capability against an intercontinental attack. So if they're truly worried about the effectiveness, they would be worried about us opposing an attack by them on Japan. And I really don't think they want to contemplate us considering that motivation. So they express concern. It's more about the extent of our presence and influence. And they must have a terrible time with that. That is, maybe the worst problem that China could face would be if we left the Western Pacific. And then Japan and South Korea were left on their own. I think China would be much more concerned about that than they are with whatever missile defense that we contribute to there. So again, there may be some genuine concern, but if so, it's not a strategic concern, it's a theater concern. But mostly it's just a political opportunity.
Does missile defense make sense for the Indians and the Pakistanis?
Well, absolutely. In fact, either one of them could build a quite effective missile defense. Because we were talking about ranges or missile capabilities where there are very effective defenses available. I don't think either one of them is terribly interested in that.
Now,
they simply want the mutual deterrent.
Now, one country that has been very interested in missile defense is Israel. And the Iron Dome system and others like that. From all accounts, it appears to have been a success story for them.
Well, of course, they're dealing with reality that occurs frequently. They're dealing with not just a potential threat, they're dealing with ongoing operations. So Iron Dome, I think, was just simply a natural national obligation to protect their population. So Israel is a very different situation than almost any other country I know. And, well, that's enough of that.
Let's talk about nuclear terrorism.
Well, nuclear terrorism is an ongoing threat that seems to have no answer except just continued vigilance. That if you're worried about weapons of mass destruction in the hands of a potential terrorist, the avenues for providing such a threat are so broad that it's the kind of problem that you just work on every day in every avenue you can think of with almost the assurance that you won't be able to cover all the bases. You know, it's not just nuclear, it's other weapons of mass destruction. But the most effective defense against a nuclear weapon in the hands of a terrorist, I think, is the approach we're taking. That is, trying very hard to control nuclear materials. We also have to pay some attention to ensuring that our relationship with an Iran or our threat to a North Korea doesn't become so overwhelming that they decide that they'll contribute. I don't worry about Iran attacking a U.S. interest because their means of attacking carries a return address. I would worry more about the relationship becoming so toxic that they would decide it was in their interest to provide a weapon that could not be attributed to Iran. I'm not suggesting that that's likely. I'm just suggesting that needs to be a consideration. So that leads me to believe that I do want to manage our relationship with Iran. We're not going to cure it. We're not going to punish them into submission. We need to manage that relationship in our interests.
You brought up the issue of chemical and biological weapons. The Defense Threat Reduction Agency was created to kind of draw together the Defense Department focus and capabilities on weapons of mass destruction. And you were present at the creation. They had a Threat Reduction Advisory Committee that you chaired. They had an Advanced Systems and Concepts office that you sent IDA people to stand up and be head of. As things went along, combating weapons of mass destruction became a buzzword and then a mission and went out to STRATCOM. And so there then was a DITRA-STRATCOM relationship. What's your assessment of how that went?
You know, when in almost every senior position I've ever been in, I always kept one drawer over there, and that drawer was my two hard problems. And I found there were two characteristics, and the value of having that drawer is I didn't ignore them, I kept looking at them. And I found a certain percentage of them just went away. And a certain percentage of them just laid there, and they were terribly important, but I didn't know what to do about them. And so what you spend your focus on has a combination of what's important and what do you have some idea of what you can do about it. I think in the general subject of combating weapons of mass destruction, all we can do is keep going down every avenue we can think of.
Diplomatic, military, everything.
Diplomatic, sensors. You just have to keep focusing on a broad range of possibilities, doing everything you can, realizing you are not going to solve the problem. You're just going to keep working on it. You know, one of the things about proliferation, whether it be nuclear or chemical, is that I am surprised at how little there has been, which says that somehow the real approach to countering proliferation is in fact in play and it works. And that real approach is to ensure that no one considers it in their national interest for a long enough period to actually achieve the capability. Because I believe any modern nation that feels that it is in their national interest and sustains that belief long enough will in fact field weapons of mass destruction. So somehow we've done quite well, or the world has done quite well, at helping to ensure that does not become a national interest,
Mm-hmm.
period.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, you're going to face it one day.